retired 6 years ago from Credit Suisse. I really felt led back to NCF as the gift advisor. So my role is to really come alongside people who are already generous and help them be more generous, to give more of their money and possessions to the things they care about and less to the government. And so last year, they enacted an act called the CARES Act. And the idea was, with all that was going into COVID, going on in COVID, they wanted to release financial resources to all of these charities. And so for the last year, for the first time in human history in this country, you could donate up to 100% of your adjusted gross income and receive a 100% deduction, therefore paying zero federal tax. That's called the CARES Act. So if your audience hears nothing else, and I'm going to go on to describe the CARES Act in a little more detail, on 12/31 of this year, 12/31/2021, the CARES Act goes away, and it's probably never coming back. So let me tell you how that can be translated into information that might be useful to whoever might listen to this live or listen to it recorded. You heard me say you can give up to 100% of your federal income and receive a full tax deduction and pay zero federal tax. That's absolutely true. In most years, you're limited to 60% of your income. In the state of California, you're limited to 50%. So this year you could give 100%, but let's say, for example, you had an apartment building that you paid $500,000 for, and it was worth $2.2 million. Well, you could donate that, but if you donated that apartment building, you could only use a portion of the donation up to 30% of your adjusted gross income. And then you would have to carry it forward for a maximum of 5 years. So if you're retired and you have this asset that's large, but this income that's small, you might not ever be able to use it all up. Well, this year you can take that same $2.2 million apartment building, sell it. Let's say when you're all done after paying the real estate commissions and closing costs, et cetera, you net $2 million. Well, this year you can take that original $500,000 that you paid, put it back in your pocket, because that was capital. That was the initial purchase. You can take the $1.5 million in gain that you made, and you can donate it and receive a 100% tax deduction. Never before, never again. You can do the same thing with art. You can do it with appreciated stock. You can do it with bonds. Just about anything that's an appreciated asset. But it gets better. It gets better because you can do it with that. But I'm going to give you another example that's even more powerful. When I started working in my career, I think I did what most people do when they started putting money in their IRA, especially if you had an employer with a generous match. And so the beauty of an IRA is that money goes in tax-free and it grows tax-free, but it does not come out tax-free. So when you get to 59 and a half, you can start withdrawing. Well, I got to 59 and a half by God's blessing. I didn't need my IRA. So it just sat there and it grew and it sat there and it grew. Well, guess what? When I get to 71 and a half, the government says, no. You have to take out what's called an RMD, a required minimum distribution, and you must pay tax on that. So here's how the CARES Act can benefit you. Let's say, for example, you wanted to take $150,000 out of your IRA. You're not going to need it. Take the $150,000 out this year. Guess what? Bad news. Your income goes up by $150,000, so does your tax. Not by $150,000, but your tax goes up. But guess what? You take that same $150,000 and you donate it. You give it away. Guess what? You get a tax deduction for $150,000. For those people that have millions of dollars sitting in IRAs that they don't need, they may never use, for the first time and only time in history, Ted, it went in tax-free. It grew tax-free, and guess what? One time only, you can get it out tax-free. Powerful, powerful tool. The third example I'll give you, we live in the land of Silicon Valley. We live in the land of stock options. Well, stock options are great, but what a stock option really means is you have the option, the opportunity to buy a stock at a preset price. Well, let's say you were at Facebook and your stock was $100, which is way low. It's $100 now, but when you got your stock option, when they hired you, no, I'll take that back because I need to keep the math simple. The stock is at $110 now. But when you came to work, they gave you the options at $10. You say, well, I'd like to exercise those options. I have the right to do that. Also, you call up your broker and you say, I'd like to exercise my stock options. He says, great. So he goes out and he has to first buy your stock so you can sell it. So he buys the stock at $10 a share, sells it at $110 a share. You net, guess what? $100 a share. Well, if you have 1,000 shares, that's $100,000. But now that's the good news. The bad news is because you have not owned that stock for 1 day in a year or 366 days, that is ordinary income. So guess what? Your ordinary income just went up by $100,000 or $1 million or $5 million, whatever the number is, and you have to pay tax on that. Well, how about instead, because you're a generous person, you donate those stock options today, or even exercise them and sell the stock and donate the gain. And guess what? You pay zero tax. You can even, we have a financial models we'll do for you that will, you might say, well, look, I want to exercise my options. I don't want to donate it all. I want to keep X amount. I want to go buy a new car, whatever it is. I have to have Y because I got to pay some state tax because we don't get 100% deduction in California. And so how much should I donate so that I can accomplish those two goals? We'll run a spreadsheet for you and tell you. So again, last time in history, you can do that. And so this is an extraordinary opportunity that we're sitting on that most people don't know. I've had more conversations with financial professionals that know just enough about the CARES Act to be dangerous. This truly, truly is a once in a lifetime opportunity. And guess what? It's going away. Time to act. And I will tell you, with all of the appreciation in the stock market, we at the National Christian Foundation are busier in November than we've ever been in the second half of December. If you're going to exercise these options, do not wait until December 15th or the 20th or the 25th or the 26th, because there's a high probability you will not be able to get it done in time. This is happening across America. It's happening across the kingdom, and it's happening across other charities. Truly, truly, Ted, the opportunity of a lifetime.